there, welcome to the I Ching Cafe's a deep dive into Hexagram 7, the Army, also known as Legions or Leader. My name is Belinda Doveston, and I look forward to working with this hexagram with you. Right, so as we work with this hexagram, this episode is going to focus on how to apply the I Ching, how to apply this hexagram in answer to a question that you have asked, either using coins or an app or the Yarrow sticks, whatever method you have used. And our job is really to get into the practical application of how to work with interpreting our questions in a meaningful way. I provided for you time codes that you can access if there's a particular changing line, for example, you want to zoom ahead to. So have a look at the scroller on the YouTube episode for that, or take a look in the description below. You'll find time codes for each section of this episode. Right, so tech specs. Let's have a look at this hexagram. We have our top trigram, okay, is the trigram Earth, right? Holding, supporting, nurturing energy that sinks, right? Earth sinks. Luckily, otherwise we would have a problem, right? So Earth sinks, okay, has weight to it, drops down. The bottom trigram, we have water, okay, which represents danger, risk, flow, all right? And that trigram also sinks, okay? So there is a unity here that our two trigrams sink, okay? They move downwards. They're connected in their movements. Now, when you look at this hexagram, all the lines are yielding female lines, except that one in the second position. That position is called the general position, okay? It is the official, the government official, as opposed to the king or the prince in the fifth position. And it is the power line here, okay? Because it is the male line in the midst of all the female lines. When we look at the structure of the hexagram, what we see, top is earth, okay? The bottom is water, all right? And what this represents is the underground water that's stored within the earth, that when it is needed, it can shoot up. Okay, it can be drawn up like a borehole up through the earth to the surface. And you can almost see that it looks like there's a borehole, right? Or there's a channel down the center of those female lines where that energy, that water can be pulled up and pulled on when necessary. And that really contains the message of this hexagram, this idea that when exceptional times present themselves, we can draw on these underground springs, right? These underground resources and energy, the people, and draw it up, okay? Use it, okay? Apply it, and then let it go and return the water back down. So in working with this hexagram, I've got a little story to share with you. In my home city of Cape Town, we had in 2017, we had a terrible drought. We had really, our dams were dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And by 2018, we were in a dire situation. And now, even just thinking back to the situation now, many years later, it's quite horrifying that we went through this. And really what it got down to is there was a water restriction in place for every citizen of the city. We were allowed 50 liters of water a day. I think that's like 13 gallons or something. And that was our allowance for water. That's for drinking, cooking, toilet flushing, showers, okay? That's it. Clearly, everybody's garden died, okay? There was a business in spray painting grass green, okay? People made money from that. And so there was this dire situation. And we were all told that there was this thing called day zero where we would run out of water, okay? And what would happen, the municipality would arrive with big tankers and you'd have to go with your bottle and you have to queue and you have to get water. I mean, if you are living in an environment that is highly developed, this idea is horrific to you, but that was our reality, right? This is what was coming, right? This day zero. So what happened? The people rose to the challenge, okay? People did what they could to save water and put in grey water systems and have 2-minute showers. We had, musicians putting together playlists of 2-minute songs that you could put the song on and shower and make sure you were finished showering by the time the song came to turn in. I mean, this is what was happening. But the people rose to the challenge, okay? It was a disaster. Can you imagine getting to day zero and nothing comes out the tap? So this hexagram really calls to mind this idea of this drought experience that I went through, as did all my other Cape Townians, where the people rallied together, and worked together to achieve this kind of avoidance of day zero. And we were saved in the final hour by not just farmers in outlying areas which had water, donating water to the city. I mean, how amazing is that? But we started to get rain. The dams started to fill, and we averted day zero. We never got there, thank goodness. But there really is no better example for me of this idea of this hexagram, the army, than this symbol of literally the water drying up and having to tap into the people being the water, the hidden resource, that when it really counts, the people can come together and do it. Amazing. Human beings are like that. No matter what the world may look like right now, when it comes to the crunch, people rise to the challenge to overcome terrible odds. So this hexagram really speaks to this idea that when we face exceptional circumstances, and typically this is always framed in this hexagram in terms of a war, and I don't like talking about war, but that is the framing of this hexagram. When we have exceptional circumstances where we are attacked, we have to draw on the people, not just in terms of supporting us with war efforts, but providing people, men and boys, to go into war. It's horrific. Women to build airplanes and to work for the troops. This is what happens in the situation of war. The people come to the moment. And then once that situation is over, the people go back to their lives. They're carpenters, they're musicians, but when it's necessary, and we can think about recent wars that can bring this idea to mind. But I really don't like the framing of war, but it is what it is. So when we think of this hexagram, how we apply it, something has come up in our lives where we are needing to draw on those hidden resources. Something is exceptional that we're undertaking. We're undertaking some big challenge, and we need to draw on our resources. If you are in a business, it's a business question. The army, we have got to mobilize the army. We have to mobilize our people, mobilize our resources to achieve something important. We have to work with the resources we have and tap into those hidden resources that perhaps would go unnoticed. Now, what makes an army succeed? What does it take for an army to do well? Well, it needs a little line in the second position, that strong male line, an exceptional general who's been given the mandate by the king, symbolically, to rally the troops, mobilize the army, and stand up for what's right. So leadership, and that's why Stephen Karsha calls this hexagram legions and leader. This hexagram is a leadership hexagram. Leadership in that we need a strong general who has that mandate, who is with the people. This is changing line in the second position. This is not a ruler sitting in an ivory tower and sending his people to be massacred. We know someone who does this, right? What we're talking about is someone who's in the people, on the front line, with the people, charging from that position of being with the people, in the people, for the people. And that requires a very clear strategy, discipline from all the troops, excellent communication, because when you mobilize this huge force, there's danger. The army's nature is dangerous. And so we have the bottom trigram, water, represents danger. We're mobilizing a dangerous force. It can go wild, just like that. It can go feral. What we need to do is we need to have that very clear strategy that's meaningful. We're not sending our troops into war for no reason, for petty reasons. There's a meaningful pursuit, right? We have a leader, who's in the people, for the people, with the people. And we have clear communication. Everybody knows what the job is. There's discipline, and we do the job and we end it. So when we apply this energy, we are mobilizing our self, our forces, our resources. We are tackling something amazing. We're bringing discipline and focus, We are bringing strategy and focus to bear upon the challenge in front of us. And we can do it if we do those things. There can be a huge positive outcome by mobilizing that energy, irrespective of whether this is a personal question, whether it's a business question, something in your team. Mobilize the resources around you. Have a plan, a strategy, clearly communicated with the right people leading from the front, leading in the people to mobilize and achieve the objectives set. So let's have a look at the changing lines. In the first position, the text refers to this line as, an army must set forth in proper order. If the order is not good, misfortune threatens. And so this line is the first line, which is beginning. How the army sets forth at the beginning is really critical. Okay, how we start this endeavor. Absolute order, absolute discipline, absolute clarity on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it is the way we work with this line. And so it comes to bring us an awareness that if we rush in to the undertaking, whatever it is, whether it's a new client or it's a relationship or it's a new personal project, if we rush in and we aren't orderly and organized, okay, with the right people in place, disaster can occur. And so let's just check ourselves as this journey is just beginning, as this big undertaking is just starting, that we make sure there's absolute order, okay, in our thinking and in the planning and in the reality of the situation. In the second place, the line says, in the midst of the army, good fortune, no blame. The king bestows a triple decoration. This is a fantastic position because remember, it is the strength position. It's the leading line of this hexagram in the position number 2. And here, when we have this as a change, it shows as an exaltation of the line. So here it shows that if we can stay in the midst of the people, okay, we can stay connected to the real world, okay, not climb the ivory tower. We can stay connected to what's really going on with the people around us, the people in our team. We can receive the blessings of the king, okay, which means we get given the mandate and there's good fortune that arises out of it. Almost in a way, doubling down a little bit on the overall meaning of this hexagram of being in the people, for the people, with the people, and being grounded, okay, in the troops. If we do that, we get the mandate and we get the energy and support to overcome this challenge and to achieve something really meaningful. The third line says, perchance the army carries corpses in the wagon, misfortune. This is an interesting line because there is reference once you read the text that there might be a mistranslation for this line. And there are some cultural references to it when you read through it. So what I'm going to do is just summarize some of the key things to think about for this line. Corpses on the wagon refers to this idea of the power moving away from that general to the people who shouldn't have the power, to the corpses on the wagon, all right? And this transference and dissemination of power and authority and focus away from the central core to the peripheral. So when we work with this changing line, and you're welcome to go read up on it to increase your understanding of it. When we work with it, how we work with it is we think about coming back to, is the leadership still at the center? Is the leadership organized, focused? Is everybody seeing that leader, okay, as the one holding the conch, okay, having the authority and the position of responsibility to lead? Or has leadership, has the center of power become fractured into those factions, into other symbols of power that people look to and can dissuade them from focus? And we know from this hexagram what's really important is that everyone is together on board, focused through that general who works for the people, in the people, with the people. And when we have fragmentation, when we have power disseminating outside of that, what we get is we get misfortune. So this line is asking us to reconnect with whatever is that central governing place of order, that central command, okay, in the situation that has perhaps lost some power because of the factions, because of communication purposefully or negligently not being passed on in the way it should. And how do we need to rally back around to the central core, even if what's binding everyone together is not a specific individual, but a principle, okay? And so we work with making sure that appointed leaders have the power and are given the mandate, are supported in their mandate to do what needs to get done. In the fourth position, it says, the army retreats, no blame. So this changing line is like Hexagram 33 retreat, right? It talks about how important it is to recognize this battle we are not going to win. Okay, there's something around with this line when it comes up that there's some aspect of this challenge, of this big undertaking you're wanting to do, or your team is wanting to do, or your company is wanting to do, that is a little beyond you right now, okay? So it might be timing, it might be, this is not yours, but what it's asking you to do is to retreat. Okay, take time out, lick the wounds, reevaluate, regroup, work with the energy of strategic retreat, getting the army out of the way into a place of safety. Don't be the one as a leader who sends your people into their deaths symbolically, right? Because you didn't know how to see the signs that the time wasn't right. So that's a very dramatic thing to say. But what we can do is we can apply the hexagram to much more mundane things at much simpler levels. Know when it's time to pull back. Because this line says you need to pull back. In the fifth line, it says, there is game in the field, it furthers one to catch it, without blame. Let the eldest lead the army, the younger transport corpses, then perseverance brings misfortune. And so with this changing line, there's game in the field. Okay, this doesn't mean that there's supper. It means that the enemy or whoever the army is against, be that a principal or individuals or organizations, has wandered into the open field. They're no longer in the bushes and the forests where they normally hide. They've wandered off into the open plain and are now anyone's game. What can happen is that the troops go wild. Oh, game in the field. Let's decimate them, right? And so there's this melee that then transpires where everyone goes wild in defeating the enemy in the field. This changing line says that is not the way. That order must prevail. That the leader must make sure that everyone is fulfilling their roles in the right way. In other words, the leaders lead, okay? The youngsters carry the corpses, okay? They've got a particular job to do. And we don't lose our minds because there's this opportunity to decimate those who've wandered into the open field of battle. So how does this apply, this dramatic sounding line? What it says is that when we have the opportunity to really tackle the situation, it's almost like it presents us with a sitting duck, okay? We don't lose our minds and become murderous, okay, and just killing for the sake of killing, okay? It's horrible to what all these violent scenes that this hexagram brings us, but there we have it. That we remain disciplined, ordered, respectful of leadership. There's a right way. We hold ourselves back and we don't persevere in the madness, okay? Persevere and keep on going and taking out the game in the field because it just happens to be there. The elders lead. The youngsters do their bit as is allocated, and we all behave in a masterly, orderly, calm fashion. We don't pillage, loot, and victimize. Okay, and so this line is encouraging us that despite the opportunity presented to us to achieve what we wanted to achieve, we still behave in principle. We don't turn into a mob mass mentality. And then the last line says, the great prince issues commands, founds states, vests families with fiefs. Inferior people should not be employed. And so we see as a culmination, remember position 6 is a culmination point. The war has been won. Hurrah. Okay. All the challenge has been overcome. All our goals have been achieved. Now what? In olden times, the king or prince would divvy up the spoils. Okay, think about pirates divvying up the spoils and give everyone money and give people titles and lands and reestablish your own people. Think of all the things that the Romans did, or any conqueror, is divide up the land and allocate people, put people in place, reward people who've been good, supportive and loyal citizens, and resolve the conflict. So what this talks about is the aftermath of the challenge. What we have to do is we reward loyal, competent people, okay, with land and title. We pay off those who perhaps are inferior people but have done their job well, and we move on. It's an interesting line because what it cautions us against is rewarding people, inferior people, as the text says, with land and position and power. Rather pay those people off, okay? Pay them off and reward good, high caliber, moral people with power, okay? What do we do with that? All right. So when we think about from a business context, this makes a huge amount of sense. Think about achieving a project, right? And you now want to reward your team. There's often a temptation as a way of getting out of paying over cash that we think, oh, we're going to give everyone shareholding, okay? We've done this merger, right? And we're going to give everyone shareholding. And you land up then giving all your employees some percentage of the business. And what happens is it turns employees who have accountability for performance into investors and owners. And that changes their expectation of their rights and their privileges. And so suddenly you have people who don't understand their power, who aren't contributing as a shareholder, right, as an investor, now having airs and graces about their power and their influence. Okay, it can be a disaster. So from a business point of view, that's one way to look at it. How do we reward people now that the big challenge has been overcome? And likewise, too, as we work with others in our personal lives, what does that mean? How do we think about rewarding people who are close to us, who've been there for us, the people who have come out of, the depths of the underground streams to support a cause, to support us? And how do we send them back? Do we reward them? Do we honor the agreements of compensation? And what kind of compensation do they offer? So it's an interesting changing line that will require you to sit with. What does it mean to finish up after the challenge has been done and close off the books, as it were, reward those, and who gets the power coming out of that situation? Where does power move to as a result of the achievement? So in summary, the army or legions or leader is a powerful hexagram teaching us that the situation is exceptional. We're trying to do something ordinarily we couldn't do. We don't have a permanent army, paid army that can achieve the challenge, that can rise up to the challenge. What we have to do is broaden our resources base, draw on support, mobilize people around that general that has a clear strategy, okay, communicates, and disciplined troops to go and tackle this thing, mobilize ourselves, our energy, and tackle it, and then dissolve that army once we are done. This might for you be as simple as you're wanting to undertake something exceptional that's beyond where you are right now. And the way that you can do that is you can mobilize yourselves, mobilize your energy, mobilize your support base to help you get over the hump, to help you achieve what it is that you're wanting to do. If you're starting a new business, for example, perhaps there's a way that you can mobilize some finance from your support base to help you do that. From a business point of view, this is very much often a mobilization of your team and resources to achieve some important strategic advantage or to seize the moment, an opportunity that is presented. And ordinarily, not yet there in terms of ability and capacity, we have to think bigger around the resources available to us and be absolutely focused. Strategy, communication, the right leader, and discipline. It's a wonderful hexagram to achieve something amazing. So go for it, do it, and lead well with the people, for the people, in the people. Thank you so much. Please like or share if this was meaningful to you in working with the I Ching in this way, with this hexagram in this way. I encourage you, if you are new to the channel, to go and subscribe or follow on the podcast, that you get the weekly and monthly episodes on the I Ching. Each week, I cast the coins, and we work with what our focus should be for that week or for the month to maximize our flow, our growth, and our life outcomes and business outcomes. I look forward to seeing you on the socials. And until then, take care.